Good afternoon. It is Friday, April 9th. I am here with Vincent and Jared. This is going to be unique in that we don't work for an EMS agency. We're an EMS education agency. However, both of these gentlemen have worked or currently work for volunteer agencies or full-time agencies. So I'll ask the question just generically, and whoever wants to answer can answer, but when you were working, what is your agency's policy for lights and sirens use for responding to 911 calls?
My agency's policy was all responses are to be lights and sirens to the call.
Both of the agencies I was on were the same.
So no matter what the call was, it was, now was that response mode dictated by your department agency, or was it dictated by the dispatch agency?
It was our departments. Even if dispatch said the caller requested a silent call, we would still go hot until we got about a block away. Then we would shut it down for getting up to the house, but we had to run hot all the way there.
Okay, all right.
Same. And both was the agency themselves to negate liability, I guess, of not going hot to a scene that could be worse than what dispatch said.
Well, and since you bring that up, just, quick question. Did you either of you ever run into a situation where a crew responding with lights and sirens to a call that turned out to not need it, were there any incidences where something happened that highlighted the fact that a crew running hot to a call that didn't require it?
No.
Okay, just curious. So with those agencies, how did they determine, or what was the policy for lights and siren use from the scene?
Whoever was the paramedic administering care would make the determination based on patient assessment presentation.
Same. Only time that would trump is if there was a preceptor and a student. The preceptor would let the student make the initial call and then change it if needed.
Okay, but otherwise, the attendant, providing direct patient care was the one that dictated the use of lights and sirens.
Yep.
At least transporting to the hospital, or?
Yeah.
Okay. How do you feel individually about the use of, or when do you think they should be used? Like, when would you use, or how do you decide when to use lights and sirens?
If there's an immediate life threat or amputation or possibility of losing sight. Obviously, patient presents in some form of critical condition, then it warrants it. Otherwise, I would say no.
Same. There were situations where the long transport where a patient would deteriorate, so you go from no lights and sirens to lights and sirens depending on the situation. We did have one highway that was along the river where there was no place for people to pull over, and sometimes if you think you have a handle on the care, to not go lights and possibly not cause other accidents in the process, to do so. But again, it was back to life threat.
This question isn't part of this, but it just kind of came up while you were talking, did you ever run into a situation where you were running hot and you had patient's family trying to follow you?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. At that time, did you determine to continue going, or did you shut the lights and sirens off in an attempt to?
Most of the situations we just continued going. However, there was a few times where my partner pulled over to run out and yell at the patient's family member and say, "Don't follow us."
Okay. And I guess the question kind of is and you Jared touched on it when you said the highway that didn't have room to pull off. You might have made the decision to shut the lights and sirens off. To me, that's operating for due regard for public safety. Do you think that mentality also falls, with the family that's following you too close or erratically? Mm-hmm. Would shutting your lights and sirens off there, or like Vincent said, your partner addressing it with them, be reasonably considered operating with due regard?
Yes. We had families blowing through red lights, blowing through stop signs, riding our butt the whole way.
Yeah, and that's when I've had partners that pulled over that say like, you can't go through a red light.
Yeah. Okay. And just so we kind of discussed, when do you decide, how do you think lights and sirens should be used in an emergent setting? Because I know, Vincent, you worked for like a interfacility transport primarily, although I'm sure you guys ran some emergency calls, or 911 calls, I should say. But what's your thought process on when they should be used? Do you think they're overused? Do you think they're underused?
Oh, I think they're overused a lot. I think it's several varying factors of distance, time of day or night, and traffic conditions. But for the most part, I think you can get where you need to go without needing to run hot, and it's not going to make any meaningful time difference in the majority of cases.
Yeah, we've had calls 2, 3 in the morning where there was literally no one on the road anyway, so why blare lights and sirens when, there was times where we would, through the country not, and then when we start hitting city limits, we'd turn them on, to get through the city a little faster, but
Do you ever operate under the condition where the lights are running but not the sirens?
no. I take that back. There might have been a time or two with seizure patients. I didn't want to have the patient go into another seizure with lights or sirens if they can see them or hear them or something of that nature. But I'm pretty sure you have to run sirens with lights.
It's generally the most accepted practice, for the simple fact that there are actually lawsuits out there for agencies that run lights with no sirens and they get in an accident. It's both or none usually. So, all right. Well, thank you very much for your participation.